the quiet space where thoughts dissolve and desires lose their grip, there is a simple truth that has been whispered through ages. Wealth does not disappear from life. It becomes hidden behind layers of the mind. Today, you are not asked to believe in luck, nor to fear unseen forces. Instead, you are invited to look inward and ask a deeper question. Who blocked your wealth, and how can it be reversed? Not in the world outside, not in fate, not in others, but within the patterns you repeat every day without noticing. Wealth, in its purest form, is not only money, it is flow, it is opportunity, it is clarity, it is the ability for life to respond to your effort. When that flow feels blocked, it is not because life has stopped giving, but because something within you has started resisting. Receiving. There are 4 silent blockers that sit unseen in the mind. The first is attachment to fear. Fear whispers in many forms. Fear of failure, fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of starting again. When fear sits at the center of decision-making, action becomes weak. Opportunities are seen too late, or not at all. A mind filled with fear is like a closed hand. It cannot receive anything new. Wealth requires openness, but fear tightens the heart and says, stay where you are. It is safer. But safety without growth slowly becomes its own poverty. The second blocker is scattered attention. Wealth grows in clarity, not confusion, yet many chase too many paths at once, starting, stopping, doubting, switching directions. Like water split into many shallow streams. Energy loses its power. Nothing becomes deep enough to sustain growth. When attention is scattered, effort becomes invisible. But when attention becomes one-pointed, even small effort turns into strong momentum. The third blocker is resistance to giving. It sounds paradoxical, but life flows in cycles. What is held too tightly cannot circulate. This includes kindness, time, knowledge, and even money. When a mind becomes only focused on taking, it slowly disconnects from the natural rhythm of exchange. Giving does not mean losing. It means allowing space for return. A field that never releases. Old crops cannot grow new ones. In the same way, a mind that never lets go becomes crowded, and nothing new finds space to enter. Wealth is a flow, not just money. Wealth represents opportunity, clarity, and life's ability to respond to your actions. It gets blocked when inner resistance builds. Wealth is not simply something you earn outside of yourself. It is a natural flow of opportunities, clarity, and results that responds to your inner state. When this flow feels blocked, it is rarely because life has stopped providing chances, but because the mind has developed resistance. One of the strongest forms of resistance is fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, and fear of loss quietly shape decisions, making a person hesitate when action is needed. This hesitation weakens progress and slowly closes doors that could have opened easily. Another hidden blockage is scattered attention. When energy is divided across too many goals without depth or consistency, results remain shallow and unstable. Wealth grows where focus is stable and actions are repeated with patience. Along with this, identity plays a deep role. If a person unconsciously believes they are not capable of success or financial growth, their actions will naturally reflect that limitation, even if opportunities appear. However, none of these blocks are permanent. They can be reversed through awareness and steady correction, observing fear without obeying it, simplifying goals, practicing consistent effort, and slowly reshaping self-belief can restore the natural flow. When the inner state changes, outer reality begins to shift in response, and what once felt blocked starts moving again with ease. Fear is a major inner blocker. Fear of failure, loss, or judgment limits action and closes the mind, preventing opportunities from being recognized or taken. Fear is one of the most subtle forces that shapes human life because it does not always appear loudly. It often speaks in quiet thoughts, small hesitations, and delayed actions. It tells the mind to wait for the right time, even when the moment for action is already present. In matters of growth and wealth, fear becomes a hidden barrier that stops movement before it even begins. A person may have skill, opportunity, and potential, yet fear of failure makes them overthink every step. Fear of judgment makes them avoid trying new paths. Fear of loss makes them hold too tightly to what they already have, even when change could bring expansion. Over time, this inner tension creates a life that feels stuck, not because opportunities are absent, but because action is repeatedly delayed. The mind under fear becomes like a closed door. Nothing new can enter because nothing is being allowed to leave the space of doubt. Yet fear is not an enemy that must be fought. It is something that must be understood. When observed carefully, fear loses its authority. By taking even small actions, despite its presence, the grip begins to weaken. Step by step, courage is not created by removing fear, but by moving through it with awareness and steady intention until it no longer controls direction. Scattered focus weakens progress. Constantly changing direction or multitasking without depth reduces momentum, while focused effort creates strong, visible results. Focus is one of the most powerful forces in shaping success, yet it is also one of the most easily broken. When attention is scattered, energy leaks into many directions without ever forming real depth. A person may start multiple ideas, switch between goals, or constantly search for something new, believing that more activity will create more progress. However, this divided attention prevents anything from becoming strong enough to produce lasting results. Wealth, growth, and achievement require continuity, not constant change. Like water flowing in a single direction, focus gathers strength over time and begins to carve a clear path. But when the same water is split into many shallow streams, it loses its force and becomes easily absorbed by the ground. In the same way, scattered effort leads to invisible progress. Where much is done, but little is seen, The mind that constantly jumps from one idea to another never settles long enough to understand depth or mastery. Real transformation begins when attention is returned again and again to one direction. Even when distraction appears, consistency turns small actions into powerful outcomes. When focus becomes stable, the mind becomes less restless, decisions become clearer, and effort begins to compound naturally. In this state, even ordinary work starts producing meaningful and visible change. Identity shapes financial reality. What you believe about yourself, your worth, ability, and potential directly influences your external outcomes. Identity is one of the deepest forces shaping a person's life, often operating quietly beneath conscious awareness. It is not just what someone thinks about themselves in a moment, but the repeated inner story they carry over time. If a person continuously identifies as someone who struggles, lacks opportunity, or is not meant for success, then their actions naturally begin to align with that belief. Even when chances appear, they may hesitate, doubt themselves, or choose safer, smaller paths. In this way, identity silently directs behavior long before decisions are consciously made. On the other hand, when identity begins to shift, even slightly, the entire pattern of life starts to change. A person who starts seeing themselves as capable of learning, growing, and improving will begin to act differently. They will take more initiative, accept challenges, and recover faster from failure. This does not happen instantly, but gradually through repeated awareness and small actions that contradict old beliefs. Each time someone acts beyond their limiting identity, they weaken the old pattern and strengthen a new one. Over time, identity is rebuilt, not by words alone, but by consistent experience. When inner identity expands, external results begin to reflect that expansion. Life responds not just to what you want, but to who you believe you are becoming. Reversal comes through awareness and steady change. By acting despite fear, simplifying focus, practicing balanced giving, and reshaping self-identity, the blocked flow begins to open naturally. The reversal of inner blocks does not happen through sudden change or forceful effort, but through steady awareness combined with small, consistent corrections in daily life. When a person begins to observe their fear instead of instantly reacting to it, a gap is created between emotion and action. In that gap, choice becomes possible. Even a small step, taken despite fear, weakens its control over time. In the same way, simplifying direction is essential. When the mind is pulled in too many directions, energy becomes fragmented. But when attention is narrowed to fewer meaningful goals, progress becomes clearer and more powerful. Alongside this, the practice of balanced giving restores flow. Giving time, effort, or value without attachment to immediate return helps break the mindset of scarcity and builds inner openness. It reminds the mind that life is not only about holding, but also about circulating. At the deepest level, Identity must also be reshaped through repeated intention and action. Thinking differently is not enough. One must act in alignment with a new self-image until it becomes natural. Over time, these combined practices slowly dissolve inner resistance. As awareness increases and actions become more aligned, the sense of blockage fades, and life begins to feel more open, responsive, and naturally progressive again.